Geez, there we go. All right, so we have a great presentation for you today. For those of you who I don't know, my name is Jesus Azanz. I'm the Executive Director for the CAI Greater Houston chapter. We have a great presentation for you today. We have Joe Saldaña, who's a staff product manager with AppFolio. Great presentation on enhancing customer service through digital transformation. Very important topic. Technology is here to stay, so it's always good to stay on top of it. So real quick, before we get into that, I want to recognize AppFolio as a gold premium partner of the CAI Greater Houston chapter. That's our highest level, supporting level that we offer. So, thank you, Joe and Mike and Brittany and the team at AppFolio for supporting not just our chapter, but many chapters, CAI chapters across the country. Really appreciate that. All right, so let me introduce Joe to you. Joe Saldaña is a staff product manager who has spent the last decade building software to positively impact its users. He currently leads the Homeowner Experience Initiative within the Community Association market segment, leveraging AppFolio as a platform to connect communities and enable stellar experiences for community managers and the residents they serve. Joe, thanks for being here today, and I'll hand it over to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Jesus. And hey, everybody. Thank you all for joining us today. As Jesus mentioned, I'm Joe Saldaña, staff product manager at AppFolio. We're a leader in world-class association management software that offers a powerful platform to manage everything from like accounting, compliance, and even powerful, easy-to-use resident portals. As Jesus mentioned, my focus as a product manager is really centered on the homeowner and board member experience, particularly within community associations. And I have the pleasure of partnering with community leaders like yourselves, as well as the homeowners you serve, to really help build products and services that ultimately enhance our industry's ability to deliver excellent customer service. So today we're going to discuss digital transformation and how technology plays a role in that experience management aspect. And as I mentioned, we're going to be holding questions till the end. So feel free to pop them in the chat as they come up, and our facilitators can make sure that those get answered at the end here. So here's the game plan for today. We're going to start by setting some context around consumer expectations and how those are being shaped kind of on the daily. We're also going to explore how we at AppFolio think about these expectations and review some of our own development principles that I'll then walk you through sort of how we think about digital transformation, what that looks like in action from various aspects of management, and then how you should use those tools to sort of evaluate your tech stack. And then, of course, we'll open it up for questions at the end there. Well, let's start by setting some context about what it means to digitally transform and the impact that that has on your business and customer service. We live in a new age, right, where our environment is shifting at a really rapid pace. And we've seen evolution across all industries where, traditionally businesses used to solely compete on the basis of their products. Then, we moved into the shift of the service economy, but now companies that are really succeeding are laser focused on experiences. And so, what do I mean by experiences? Well, a perfect example is wedding registries these days, right? I just celebrated my cousin's wedding over the weekend, and gone are the days where folks just had like flatware and, home goods or sheets on their registries. Now you can actually purchase meals or excursions for the couple's honeymoon. And while, the lifetime of a parasail adventure or a fabulous meal might not be as long as that of a set of forks or knives or something like that, the lasting memories that they'll create will be cherished for a lifetime. So the other interesting shift that we're seeing is that businesses are no longer being compared solely within their sector, right? So with the likes of companies like Amazon and Netflix and Instacart, whose sole purpose is to deliver these instant gratification, high level of customer service experiences, you're no longer just being compared to your fellow CAMs in your area. You're competing with the experiences that these companies create day in and day out. And even a negative experience is a chance for these companies to shine. As an example, I was recently overcharged on an Uber ride. And while that wasn't a great experience, I was so thrilled that I was able to resolve the matter in seconds without ever having to get on the phone or wait on hold to talk to somebody. With just a few taps in the app, my issue was resolved immediately. I was issued a refund on the spot. And here I am telling you about what should have been an unpleasant experience as something that was pleasant based on the interaction that I had with that company. And that's exactly why experience matters. If you can wow your customers, especially in those times where maybe something goes wrong, you'll be able to create champions out of your customers who will then be able to mention your name when they're out at dinner and somebody happens to mention that they're having a not so great experience with their management company. They can sing your praises and ultimately further your business. Now, I want to chat about experience within our market. So to do this, let's use a keystone of association management, community meetings. Think about anything from board meetings to committee meetings or budgetary meetings. When we talk about meetings, it's not exactly everybody's favorite part of living within a community or managing it for that matter. When we talk to homeowners and boards, they often lament the aspect of meetings, but it's pretty universally accepted as the way to get things done within the community. And this area of community management has experienced significant digital transformation over the past year, especially catalyzed by the COVID-19 pandemic. So let's take a look. All right, so prior to 2020, this was a pretty typical scene for community members, right? You had everybody in the same room. It was maybe common to start late due to people commuting from wherever the meeting was being held. You had small talk happening, people walking in late, causing disruptions. And I say everyone in a room, but we know that in-person meetings traditionally have fairly low participation. And we hear this from community leaders all the time about how difficult it is to get things done due to the inability to meet quorum. It's just a fact of association management. But as restrictions start to loosen up, people are experimenting with a new way of meeting, particularly in person. And they might look like this, right? Where you have a few folks who are meeting outside when it's weather permitting. You have some people that have masks on. There's some social distancing still happening here and there. There's just this added bit of tension that we typically didn't see before. But the reality is more and more folks are wanting meetings to look like this. You've got a woman here sitting with her young child, actively participating in the community meeting from the comfort of her own home. She doesn't have to find a sitter. She could be, feeding her child in the background, cooking dinner, but still listening and participating, because the fact that the meeting is held online creates this space of convenience for her. And really that's what it's all about. She gets to actively participate on her own terms. So in the early days of the pandemic, our own research team reached out to community managers to see sort of what shifts were happening or what shifts they were anticipating. And here's a quote from one of the respondents. They noted that they had a feeling that digital meetings were on the horizon. It was something that their residents started to talk about. They wanted to pull the trigger on, but they really weren't sure how. But the quote perfectly illustrates the impact of digital transformation, where technology disrupts or greatly impacts how things get done and pave the way for sort of a new future experience. And the prediction was definitely spot on. As we take a look at some of this data provided by CAI's virtual meeting and electronic voting survey, the majority of those surveyed suggested that the governing documents either already supported virtual meetings or there was some wiggle room or unclarity there, while only a minority of folks said that virtual meetings weren't supported. And then when asked about the preference for how meetings took place, the vast majority of folks preferred meeting online. Diving deeper into some of the reasons for preferring meeting online, respondents indicated that they saw increased efficiency for their association's operations. They saw increased resident participation and engagement. They saw more board participation, and they were actually having shorter meetings. And CAI's data definitely mirrors that of our own research. We built a calendar functionality, and one of the core competencies is managing community meetings. And over again, when we were interviewing homeowners and board members and community managers, one of the key aspects was making sure that they had a place to provide that information that was easily accessible. And over again, they were telling us that they saw increased participation in meetings because they had gone digital, just because at the time they weren't actually able to meet in person. So pretty consistent experience with our own customer base. But the survey also explored opportune meeting times. The majority of respondents indicated that in the evenings during the week was the preferred meeting times. So diving deeper, respondents indicated that because the meetings were now virtual, it actually provided the community with a better opportunity to hold those meetings at those most ideal times. And this is just, again, a stellar example of how digital transformation from in-person to virtual meetings actually enhance their residents' experience within their community. The aspect of the meeting being held digitally created space of convenience for the homeowners to better fit those meetings into their lifestyle. You know, in the evenings during the week, it's the time that we typically unwind. We're cooking dinner, we're spending time with our families. The fact that you didn't have to leave your living room to attend that meeting made a really big difference in that participation question. So in your own world, I want you all to think about, where you're currently leveraging technology to extend customer service, and what efficiencies that actually creates. What has that transformation created space for? Maybe it's that you are better able to focus on strategy, or maybe it's that you're scaling your business and you want to onboard more communities, or it's just you've created a better work-life balance. You've been able to automate some of these menial tasks so that you can focus on more meaningful things. Now I want you to think about your customers, the homeowners and the boards that you serve, and what these sort of transformations create for them. It's a really great question to sort of focus your efforts on where you want to create space, where you want to enhance their experience. As we explore digital transformation, just ask yourself what these enhancements might create space for. So when implementing technology, it's really important to be mindful of the ecosystem of everyone who's going to be interfacing with that system. From the managers such as yourselves to boards and homeowners that you serve, your system really has to be approachable by all. So I want to spend some time discussing some guiding principles that we at Appfolio applied to our approach to product development that I think really extend well to how your team should be evaluating technology to really digitally transform those homeowner experiences. So this isn't an exhaustive list of all of the principles, but I wanted to pull through the ones that I think most help facilitate that digital transformation. Firstly, you've got to be homeowner-centric, which means that you're putting your customers at the heart of decision-making processes. At Appfolio, for example, we conduct interviews, we perform concept tests, and after we release a new product, we bring in folks to do post-release usability to really keep a close pulse on the needs of our end users and ensure that the products that we're building are actually satisfying those needs. That's how we know when we're done with that particular project to move on to the next one. And you can definitely apply these same principles or practices by surveying your own customers. In conversations with prospective customers, you can really deep dive into the challenges that they're facing. If you have an association that moves on to different management, conduct an exit interview, understand where you weren't meeting their needs, so that you can have that better pulse on the issues that are facing these communities. This is not only going to help, inform your service strategy overall, but it's going to be equip you to better speak to the problems of your customers, and better yet, speak to the market to know that you have a really good understanding of how to best serve them in the marketplace. Next up, the platform should definitely be convenient. And we know that convenience is at the heart of these digital experiences. Just like the data that we saw from CAI around virtual meetings, at Appfolio, we make sure that one of the key benefits of whatever it is that we're building offers convenience to the homeowners, because that's ultimately how they're going to evaluate our customers, right? Convenience is such a keystone for digital transformation because it effectively creates the path of least resistance to help your residents in sort of a self-service experience, right? So thinking about technology, what systems do you have in place to help your residents self-serve when your office is closed, as an example. If they've got a question about their CC&Rs, or they're thinking about a landscaping project at 10 p.m. on a Sunday night, do they have an online resource where they could quickly, consult the documents to get an immediate answer? If not, that might turn into several emails and back and forth conversations, or lead to frustration rather than delight with your customers. And that's something that you want to avoid at all costs, because those micro interactions of taking the time to point them in the right direction or surface up those documents is going to take away time for more important work that you could be doing. And then as a complement to convenience, the experience must be easy to use. Homeowners are a very diverse group of folks, and we need to ensure that the software is approachable by anyone. So, whether you're dealing with a tech whiz who's grown up with technology all of their life and is super familiar, or you're dealing with somebody who's maybe purchasing their first smartphone in 2021, ease of use is going to be key for adoption. And I think that that's true not only of technology, but the processes. If your processes are clunky, they're not going to be easily adopted. And so you're going to constantly be fielding people to try and conform if they aren't easy to use. These experiences should just be intuitive. And that's why when we're developing new technologies, we bring in people from all different regions and socioeconomic backgrounds and levels of comfort with technology to really ensure that our product is approachable. And so when you're evaluating technology, you can form similar committees to help you evaluate ease of use. Engage people from different backgrounds, from different communities, to really ensure that whatever new process you're rolling out is going to work, and it's going to be approachable, and it's going to be intuitive. And then use the feedback that you get where there are hiccups to adjust those strategies a little bit. So with thinking about those principles, I want to see how this comes to life with a few examples where you can pull this through in available technology today. So again, I'll use an example from AppFolio. One of the ways that we stay homeowner-centric is by engaging homeowners in what we call a jobs to be done study. So it's one of our research tactics. Basically, in a nutshell, what this involves is deep dive interviews where we dig into what it means to be a homeowner in a community association. So we go deep on all of the various responsibilities, the tasks, the environmental conditions that make up what a homeowner experience is. And then these deep interviews that we do, over the phone, in person, virtually, basically inform a broader survey that we then send out to thousands of homeowners across the nation. And it basically outlines all of these different tasks and goals that we uncovered in those interviews. The next step is we basically present the task, let's say like the need to stay informed about community happenings as an example. And we ask them to rank this. What's the level of importance in accomplishing that task? And then how well is that task currently being met? So it gives this sort of opportunity score where a need is super important, but is not well served. And then that's an area that you can dive into to improve that experience or innovate a new way to be more successful there. So in our research, one of the areas that became really clear was that knowing what's happening in your community was absolutely important. Across the board, it was one of the top needs there. But homeowners reported that that need wasn't well met. So, we heard stories of lack of visibility into what's happening in the community. And this took all different types of forms, right? It could be awareness about community meetings. It could be about planned maintenance or projects that might affect their commute or, where they might need to park. Even little things, especially when you're new to the community, like, when is trash day, or when are my association dues going to be subject to late fees? We heard countless stories of these, manually created calendars that people might have been posting in the lobby of a condo building, or a physical bulletin board that, oftentimes was almost immediately out of date as the situation changed. We did hear some cases where folks were actually posting something online, but because it wasn't centralized, they had to go to their website to find out what was happening. But if they had a maintenance request, they were going to some other platform. But If they wanted to pay their dues, they had to log into another platform. So there was this disjointed sense from homeowners. And then on the flip side, community leaders were telling us that they were constantly fielding the same questions over and over from their homeowner base, like, when's that next meeting? Or I know you sent out the link for the virtual meeting, but I can't seem to find it. Or I know you told us that we have to park off street, but I can't remember which day. All of these little micro interactions add up and ultimately take away from some of the more important duties that managers face. And then if you think about how you could solve that on the flip side, it could really be an opportunity for you to delight your homeowners, again, by providing them with that proactive insight, with those instant answers to their questions. Tying it back to our example earlier, having a single place where they conduct all of their different association business, where they can quickly access things like virtual meeting information or agendas or meeting notes, really goes a long way to serving your communities in the way that they expect to engage with all of the other experiences that they're used to. We found that having a community calendar that's really well populated and really well utilized is a great way to keep your communities informed. And in fact, post-release of that calendar, we actually saw upticks in all of the other aspects of our portal. So when the association manager and the community was taking advantage of the calendar by really populating it with good information, we saw upticks in nearly every other aspect of their online portal. So they were looking at documents more frequently. They were leveraging capabilities of architectural reviews. They were leveraging capabilities of maintenance. They were paying online at a higher rate because the portal now became this source of information for them that they didn't have to reach out directly to a manager to get that information. So it was a really powerful tool for staying engaged. So another key component of the value that the association brings to homeowners is really to help maintain the look and feel of communities by preserving and increasing the values of homes, right? We've got these architectural review processes that are a key mechanism for boards and homeowners to adhere to the covenants of their community. Really ensuring that your architectural review process is clear and accessible to homeowners is key to success. Again, in our research with homeowners all across the country, we were really surprised at how paper-based these processes still are. And homeowners don't want it to be that way. They lamented having to call management offices to even just get information about what the process looks like, let alone accessing forms that they then had to print or scan, which a lot of folks that we spoke with, they don't actually have printers at home. So then it's an added responsibility of like, oh, I have to remember to print that when I'm at the office later today. And that's just not what they expect. There was a really funny story that I was speaking with a board member, and she likened the experience of processing an architectural review to that of like renewing your license. And she actually referenced the DMV as like an improvement for customer service. And there's an issue when anybody is referencing the DMV as a archetypical customer service experience where you could just go online and renew your license. They wanted a similar experience for submitting their architectural reviews, where you could go on, submit the information you needed, and start that approval process. Again, having your processes online is a great way to meet that modern expectation of homeowners. And again, ensuring that your online processes are clear and easy to use and convenient for the homeowners is key to adopting whatever technology stack you decide on. Another issue for homeowners, especially those new to communities, is that they weren't always familiar with what an architectural review process is. If they've never lived in an association, they've never had to think about getting approval if they wanted to paint their home or they wanted to, modify their fence or whatever that might be. So they're not always clear on like what the process actually is and like what types of modifications would actually be necessary for approval. As one example, I spoke with a homeowner who didn't realize that the potted plants on her porch actually required approval from the board. And this led to a situation where the homeowner made unauthorized changes as a result, and they had to duplicate their work. They had costs at their own expense. They were subject to fines. And this ultimately damages the relationship between management, the board, and the homeowner. And we should actively try and mitigate this wherever possible to avoid some of these like divisive experiences. In her case, unfortunately, she had to depot all of her plants. She had to go out and purchase new pots that met the specifications of the governing documents, repot them, spent a lot of time and a lot of money, and ultimately she felt like she wasn't set up for success, and there was something that could have been done that was better there. So wherever there's an opportunity, you really want to set clear expectations in your online forms, letting the homeowners know, exactly what requires approval. So maybe calling out some of those oddities like, front porch furniture or potted plants as an example. And then you also need to think about what information the board needs in order to make a decision about that approval. So thinking back to the times that you've communicated on these issues, what are the common elements that are often left out of the initial submission? Call those out in very clear processes of those submission forms so that you can ensure the likelihood of a really speedy approval and really mitigate some of the risks we discussed. The other component of architectural reviews that we hear from board members is the ability to quickly and easily review requests online. And when I say online, I want to be really clear that email does not check the box for online. When board members spoke about the processes that they were currently doing, they talked a lot about these broken email chains. So, approval comes in from a homeowner, maybe it goes through a back channel. They happen to know the neighbor that sits on the board. The board member is then, putting that out to the rest of the board or the architectural committee. One person replies and forgets to reply at all. Then you've got, documents that are missing. You've got questions that go unanswered. The process is overall prolonged because all of that information is not concise and something that's easily reviewable. What boards told us they really want is a single source of truth where they can review all of the information. They wanted to be able to communicate in apps so that nothing went missing or it wasn't dependent on somebody's behavior of clicking reply all to make sure that that information was shared appropriately. They wanted a clear way to vote for the approval, not just like having to read through a long document that ultimately said at the very bottom, oh yeah, also it's approved. This way, information is never lost and it's easily accessible whenever you need to refer back to it, which we hear all the time, right? You need to go back and say, what precedent did we set with approving Cheryl's storm door last week? Well, we can go back to the documents, review the conversations, see the attached files, and you can continue to reference those. And it will be a source of truth as the board turns over. So, out into the future, when they need to refer back to those things, you have a single source of truth that doesn't rely on people's personal emails to keep track of that. So when evaluating solutions, make sure that they support multiple voting schemes, whether that's, first to vote or a majority or, first to say no wins or whatever those things might be. When your board is up and running, you also want to make sure that you have well-tracked communication and of course the ability to link to all of the supporting documents to kind of house those in one place. When the board is up and running on an online portal, they're definitely going to act as champions to get the rest of the community online. So we see this in our own data. When boards actively establish their portal accounts, we see an uptick in the homeowners' adoption of those portals as well. So they're going to be your champions, like I said, to make sure that all of the homeowners are on that platform. When they actually realize the efficiencies that it creates for them, the next time a homeowner asks about a process, they can easily point to your online resource and deflect a call to management. And when your process is online, boards can easily approve the request. They can keep the process running smoothly. By being active users in the portal, board members don't have to wait until meetings or make calls if they have questions. And gone are the days of those broken email chains or missing attachments. With everything centralized in one place, you increase transparency for the board and the homeowners that ultimately builds trust. That single source of truth really helps your team move quickly and ultimately delights those homeowners. Shifting gears a little bit, but related to the look and feel of communities, shared spaces and amenities are one of the top reasons that home buyers decide to purchase in a community. Ensuring that those common areas are well maintained is one of the key ways that homeowners and boards actually evaluate management companies. So from intake to completion, going digital helps to create transparency and deliver value quicker. Big part of the value that managers bring to their community is really ensuring that those common areas are well maintained. It's not always possible to be on site on the daily. So you sort of have to rely on your homeowners to be your eyes and ears on the ground to alert you to those maintenance issues. So whether it's jets malfunctioning in the spa, or you've got a sprinkler that's busted in a median, making it really simple, really easy, really approachable for residents to quickly create a ticket for management to address is such an important aspect of customer service. And providing that self-service experience means that your residents can communicate those issues at their convenience when it's top of mind to them. They don't have to rely on your hours of operations by calling in if you have a system in place that allows them to report those issues as they see fit. And then on the flip side of things, whether you employ in-house maintenance staff or you're outsourcing some of this to vendors, timely information is key to making residents feel heard and sort of in the loop. So think about information and how it flows through the life cycle of a service request. Right now, are you able to get information about open work orders from your maintenance techs while they're out in the field? Are your staff and or vendors able to feed that information back to the residents that submitted these issues? If not, you're creating a communication gap, and it provides that opportunity for the homeowner or the board to feel like they're not being heard or they're not being understood. But by creating that transparency for your residents, you facilitate trust. You ultimately underscore the value that you bring to the community, and you preserve the perception of excellent customer service for which they hired you. And status updates are a great way to communicate that progress on outstanding projects. When we talk to homeowners and board members, again, the homeowners and board members that report dissatisfaction with their management companies, it ultimately comes down to poor communication. And so, there's a plethora of different solutions that are out there that folks are using today to help keep track of community happenings, compliance issues, service request lifecycle. But when evaluating those solutions, I really want you to consider some of the principles that we mentioned today. Are they user-centric? Are they convenient? Are they easy to use? So I hope you found this content helpful. I'm basically wrapping up now. So if you have any questions or you want to stay on the line to chat, we'll be available for the next 10 minutes or so. Any questions that came through, Mike or Jesus, feel free to key those up to me. Otherwise, you could also unmute yourself and we could just have a chat.
No questions that came through on the chat, so let's open it up. And if anybody has any questions for Joe, we're happy to take them, and we really appreciate you joining us today.
And if you're interested in learning more about what we do at Appfolio and the solutions that we offer, you can visit us at appfolio.com/associations.
Joe, how often are you conducting your research? I know you're using a lot of CAI research, and our foundation does a lot yearly, sometimes every third year. But are you guys seeing a big shift? Are you doing it yearly, every other year, or how fresh is that data?
Oh yeah, I mean, the research that we are doing is on a daily basis. So as a product manager, my day mostly consists of research. So whether that takes on the form of like consuming industry reports like CAIs, or it's actually going out into the field and talking with community managers, we're constantly refreshing data, and it comes in a lot of different channels. There's sort of the like day-to-day research that might be informing the products that we build, but then there's higher altitude research that we might be doing from a strategic base where, it's broad, it's high level, and it's informing kind of the direction of the company versus the more sort of tactical research that informed like where we put a button on the page to make sure it's the most discoverable. So all of the research that we're doing is, it would be fair to say, on a daily basis. Some of the stuff that we publish on a more like regular cadence is sometimes done at like a quarterly interval, but research in general is happening every single day. I was just on the phone with I think 7 folks over the last 2 days exploring a new option that we're looking at.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that gets overlooked, is really making, data-based decisions in our industry, and really just in life, but in particular our industry. And let's face it, and this is not a knock on the HOA industry, but our industry is a little bit behind the curve on a lot of this stuff. There's companies out there like AppFolio and others that provide services that can help us get caught up to speed. And certainly, I'm sure there's some folks on this call who are looking at this presentation going, holy cow, I need to get some things together, some streamline going on. So we appreciate your time here today. And I think folks know where to find you. If not, they can reach out to me. And I think we can get a copy of this presentation and we'll get it out to everyone on the call. And we'll see about the recording here afterwards. So appreciate everyone. Joe, thank you. Mike, appreciate your efforts and time on this. And one last plug, again, if everybody wants a drink and to throw a couple of bean bags, we'll be at the Kirby Ice House at 5 o'clock. So appreciate it. Thanks everyone for your time.
Sounds fun. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.